I'm so disgusting. I haven't showered, I haven't changed clothes in 24 hours. Just kidding. I'm actually recording back-to-back of your classes on the same day. And part of the reason I'm doing it is because really this, I think, is a lot easier today than what we did yesterday, what you will have done yesterday. And it's just not really that difficult at all. You guys, I think, are going to like it compared to what we're doing. Now, we're dealing once again with prisms and cylinders, okay? And we did that 2 class periods ago, prisms and cylinders, but we did the area. For the first time, guys, I believe in your class, if I'm not mistaken, pre-algebra, we're actually going to be working on volume. We're going to be figuring the volumes of prisms and cylinders instead of the area, like we did a couple of days ago. And as always, there are going to be some important formulas that you need to know. We're not going to deal with cylinders right now. We're going to deal with prisms first, okay? And this is the first formula that you need to write down. Now hang on to your socks. Are you ready for this big long formula? V equals BH. Done. It's not that hard, is it? V equals B times H. Now listen very carefully though as I explain this. Don't get this confused with the area of a parallelogram that we did very early on in the chapter when we had area equals base times height. That's different. It's basically just the length times the height. Whereas with this, for volume, it's the area of the base. Okay? So write that down in your notes if you need to. If you can remember it, that's fine. If you have an elephant memory, that's great. Use it. But if you do not, write it down. For volume, base, but understood the area of the base of what that shape is, times the height of it. And that's just going to be a single number. So let's try number 1. I think these will go pretty quickly, and hopefully so, for your sake as well as for mine. Number 1, the volume of a rectangular prism, find it when you know it has as a base 5 feet by 9 feet. And it's 2.5 feet tall. So how do you find the volume of a prism? Your formula is V equals B times H. Now remember, your base is the area. Okay, it's the area of the base. And since it's a rectangle, how do you find the area of a rectangle? The way that you do that is the width times the length, or if you prefer length times the width. Okay? So for the base, what I'm going to put in is 5 times 9. And as we often do and say, that's not a 5 decimal, as in 5.9, that's 5 times 9. And we don't put in typically anymore 5x for times 9 because we use x so much in algebra for a variable, so it can get kind of confusing. And so it's 5 times 9 only for B because it's the area of the base, and since it's a rectangle at the base, this prism is, then it's the length times the width, which is 5 times 9. Now, once we found that, then we can multiply it times H, which is the tallness or the height of it is 2.5. 2.5. All right. So what I'm going to do is peel back where you are. You're getting used to that by now, aren't you? Let me clear out what we were just doing in our previous class. And we have 5 times 9, which I'm not going to put in the calculator and insult your intelligence or mine. What's 5 times 9? Basic multiplication table. 5 times 9 is 45. And so we're going to put in 45 times 2.5. 90, and then half of another 90 would be 45. So what would that be? 135? Would that be right? 2.5 I need to put. So 45 and 45 would be 90. No, it'd be half of 45 again, wouldn't it? What's that? Okay, so 90 would be 22.5 is what it'd be. So 2 45s and a 22.5 give you 112.5. 0.5. Okay, so the volume is 112.5 of that particular rectangular prism. Guys, we're done with number 1. Now that's a little better compared to what we've been doing the last 2 class periods, isn't it? I'm telling you guys, that's some of the toughest stuff that you're going to do in pre-algebra. Finding the lateral surface area, the surface area of 3-dimensional objects. That is not easy stuff. But it's funny that I really think the volume is way easier than what the surface area of things are. So maybe that's an encouragement to you. I'm going to rewrite this down here because I've run out of space. So V equals 112.5 in what units? I've been doing feet everywhere. Now pay close attention to this, guys. Remember, area is always measured in units squared. Good job. Volume is always measured in units cubed. Okay, that's a little bit, remember with our radicals, square roots and then cube roots and squares and cubes. Well, kind of the same thing with area and volume. With area, you're always dealing with units squared. With volume, you're always dealing with units cubed. No matter what the units are, feet, meters, inches, they're always going to be cubed if you're calculating the volume itself. So get used to doing that. Number 2, find the volume, not of this rectangular prism as we had up here, but notice in this one we have the shape. Again, not bad shapes for me, huh? I'm not a Ken, I'm not a Caden, I'm not a Kelsey. Well, those are all K's, aren't they? Maybe that's the key. If I were a Carrick, maybe I'd have been a good drawer. So, now I'm a terrible artist, you know that, but these are pretty good for me. So let me brag and have some confidence just for half a second, okay? This is not a rectangle, notice, but it's a triangular prism, and the reason it's a triangular prism is because there are 2 bases parallel to each other that match one another, okay, and therefore that is triangular in its prism nature. So, what are we going to do here? What we are going to do is still use our same formula of V equals B times H. But remember, the base is the area of its base. And since it is a triangle, a triangular prism, the base is a triangle. What is it that I'm going to do to figure out what the area of that base is? Well, I need to ask myself, what is the area of a triangle in terms of formula? The area of a triangle, formula-wise, is 1/2 times B times H. I hope you remember that, and if so, that's great. And if not, that's okay. It's a helpful reminder. 1/2 times B times H. Now, I want you to look at something here. These are parallel to each other. They're equal, this top and this bottom, okay, as parallel bases. But how do I know whether to use a 9 and a 12, a 12 and a 15, or a 9 and a 15? How do I know which of the 2 numbers I need to plug in? Do you guys remember this rule? Always use the 2 legs when determining the base and the height. Use the 2 legs. And how do you know what the 2 legs are? They form the 90-degree angle. And you see that little horizontal and vertical line right there? That means these 2 lines form a 90-degree angle. So you're not going to use 15 because that is the hypotenuse. And also notice the hypotenuse is always the longest of the 3. And so that's how you know as well, even if you didn't have those handy-dandy lines. So you're not going to use the hypotenuse. What you're going to use for the base and the height, it doesn't matter in what order you put them, is the 9 and the 12. So A equals 1/2 times, let's go 12 first. There's a reason for that. Times 9. 1/2 times 12 times 9. Okay, so what's the area of that going to be? I like putting that first because look, it's easy to find half of 12. What's half of 12? 12 divided by 2 is 6, and then we still have 9. You see, we'd had a decimal initially for 9. Let's just cut that out and multiply the 1/2 times the 12 and have no decimal. What is 6 times 9? 6 times 9 is 54. And we just found area And so that's in centimeters squared. Centimeters squared. Okay. The reason we did that, now we can plug in the area of the base, which is 54 centimeters as the triangle. Either one, they're the same. So what we're going to do is V equals B times H. That's our formula. That's why. Okay, we're trying to find volume. What is our base? Our base is 54. And don't worry about units right now. We just put those on at the end so it doesn't get tedious writing them too many times. And now, how high does one base go from the other? One base up here, one base up here. How high is there? What distance is there in separation? That's right here, guys. 10 centimeters. So 54 times 10. We can do that in our heads. 54 times 10 is simply 54 with a 0 at the end. And what are my units? Centimeters. And since I just found volume, see over here I found area, so it's centimeters squared. Since I just found volume, it's centimeters what? Cubed. And so my volume for that, not rectangular, but now triangular prism is 540 centimeters cubed. Okay, for these last two, we're going to be dealing with a circular cylinder. A circular cylinder. And you can tell like what those bases would look, and I didn't draw the dotted line there, although I could. But the bases are going to be circles. And so we've dealt with bases of rectangles and triangles with our prisms. Let's deal with a base that's a circle in these two cylinder problems. And in the first one, we're told to find the volume of this circular cylinder. And look, the volume is going to be exactly the same as what it's been before. The area of the base, that's B, it's not just base as in like, say length, like it is in an area of just the area of like a rectangle. No, it's the area of the base times the height. Look, we have the height, the distance between these two bases, that's 7 centimeters. That's easy. We already have that. What we don't have is the area of the base. Okay, and look, are we given the area of this triangle? Here we go again. It's hard, isn't it? From shape to shape to shape to shape to shape. We're done with the triangle. We're done with the rectangle. We're dealing with the circles now, aren't we? Am I given the area of this circle? It would be handy if I were, but no, I am not. However, look, there's an alternate formula, and what it is the area of a circle for B here is calculated by these terms, pi times the radius squared. Okay, and then go ahead and multiply at the end by height. But the area of a circle is pi, as a formula, times r squared. Do I have r, or a radius? Do I have a measurement halfway across the circle in number 3? I most certainly do. And that is 4 centimeters. And so what I can do is say, well, the area of a circle is pi times r squared. What's my radius? Dos times dos. It's quattro. So pi times 4, and don't forget to square that. Okay? So we're going to do exactly that. What we're going to do is, and don't forget, remember we can actually, let me redo this right here. Now we can do it that way, and then we can rewrite the formula, but look, V equals B times H, or pi times r squared, which we've done, and just slap the times and H on the end. So let's do that instead. And it's okay, the way I started to do it's the longer way, and a lot of times when I'm teaching something, I'll do it the longer way. But so we've done enough of this stuff. Let's do it as our formula is in the shortcut way. That's why we put the alternate formula up there. Volume equals pi times radius squared, then just slap on times your height, or the distance between, okay, the two circular bases. I know I didn't draw the dashed line here, and the teachers and the writers of the material didn't do it. That's why I did it. It's good to see it in a little different ways sometimes. So this is a circle here, and you can kind of see that going down, and just imagine it being completed just like this one on top. So there are two circular bases, right? But the distance between separating those is 7 centimeters. And so we can multiply that at the end by 7. Okay, and let's get dirty finger erase. Let's get just a little bit more room and separation. Now I'm going to come over here with you, and we're just going to multiply all these dudes together. So we have pi, which is, well, and let's not start there because we have 4 squared, don't we, first? 4 squared is, and we do exponents before multiplication, and so 4 squared, of course, 4 times 4 is 16. Let's start there. 16 times 3.14. And then with our calculators, we can just put it all in at once, times an additional 7, which is 351, right? 351 as a single decimal. What would that be, a 6 or a 7? Way to go, a 7. 351.7, and what are my units? Centimeters. I just found volume, guys. Centimeters. There you go. Cube. Because volume is always measured in units, no matter what those units are. Cubed. Okay, for the last one, like the first one, we don't have a drawing, but we're just given information. So let's take this, let's use it, and let's plug it in to find the radius of a cylinder with a height of 12 feet and a volume of 432. Now, this is kind of tricky. Look at this. 432 times pi. So there's a step you have to do there just at the volume alone. And of course, volume is measured in feet cubed. But notice in this one, we're given the volume. And we don't have the radius, although we do have the height. And so our formula is V equals base, which is the area of the base times the height, or what the area of the circle formula is, pi times r squared h. We need to use the pi times r squared h in this one, and here's why. R is going to be our variable, and we need that present to calculate what the radius is. So let's use that second formula again. Use the information in a problem, use the information on a drawing to help you determine which form of the same formula you need to use. And so V, red's getting a little light too, isn't it? V equals pi times r squared times big H. Okay? Now, we're given the volume, so we're going to plug that in for V. That's different. We haven't done that up to this point. Our volume is 432. It's weird, but pi meaning times pi. They didn't multiply that out for us, so let's keep it just the way they give it to us. There's a reason for that. Equals pi times R2, r squared, and what's our height? 12. And so we just plug in 12 right there. Now, I want you to look at something. Pi is being multiplied on this side. Pi is being multiplied on that side. If I want to move it, and I do, and it's being multiplied on this side because I'm trying to isolate my r, okay? And at first it's going to be r squared. And so I have to separate everything that's attached to it via multiplication, so I'm going to use division to move it to the other side. Look, I can do that with pi without making the calculation, the numerical calculation just yet. And look at this. When I divide both sides by pi, and they both have a pi multiplied, what happens to the pi? A terrible thing in food. Pi gets canceled out and you don't get to have any, when at first you had 2. But in math, and you're trying to make things dwindle down, that's actually a good thing. So the pi's just cancel each other out through division. That's kind of neat. So that's why they had it that way, to multiply it all out. It saved us, essentially saved us a step. Now look, I have a 12 attached to an r squared via multiplication, understood? So how do I move that 12 to the left side? I divide both sides by 12. Divide both sides by 12. And we can do that in our heads. I'll speed it up for you though, okay? You guys have been good and patient with me. So I'll reward you a little bit not having to not having to do it in our heads. So we have 432, now that it's focused in on my calculator, divided by 12, and that equals 36. Okay, good even number. We like those, don't we? So what we have left is r squared. I know we had the variable on the right side, but we can just as easily put it on the left side and the other info on the right, and it's the same thing. Okay, nothing's changed. We're more comfortable on the left, so let's just go ahead and say it's on the left. R squared equals, we just found 432 divided by 12 to be 36. All right, I haven't solved for r. I just have it down to r squared. How do I get rid of that squared on the left side? Inverse or opposite operation, take the square root of both sides. And that leaves me with r, and what's the square root of 36? Meaning what times itself gets me to 36. Guys, that too is an even number, which is 6. That's pretty cool, isn't it? That's your answer. R equals radius of this circular cylinder equals 6. What units? Everything has been in feet thus far, and therefore I keep them there. But guys, look at this. Notice I don't put a cubed on this one. I don't put a squared on this one. I don't put a cubed even though I've dealt with volume because I didn't find the volume. I used the volume already, and I used volume to find radius. And whether it's radius or height, it would just be in units, not in units cubed, and for that matter, not even units squared. So my answer is radius, r, equals 6 feet. And that's all, guys. That's all the math for today. That's all the math for the weekend. Unless you need to work on your homework, and make sure that you do that at some point and get that turned into me by Monday. And that is quiz 3. All right, guys. Have a great weekend.